I think we can start. First of all, a very warm welcome in the House of the European Union. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, great that you join us today. Fortunately or unfortunately, I think the timing is very much right for this discussion. So I think it's one of the most topical areas that we can think of. If you followed the news the last days, we've seen disinformation allegations in Austria, but I think there's not a single day where we don't have news about similar ways of interference, manipulation in each of our member states. So I think this is a very, very serious issue. If you followed the news, you probably also have seen that the Commission is very much active on this role. We have presented a new strategy on preparedness and resilience and security. I think these are topics that are very much at the very, very top of the political agenda these days. And I think the good news is, therefore, awareness is there. And we are aware about this, that this is a major, major threat to our democracies. We take this very seriously, and we are taking action on each level, so European level, on member state level, on regional level, across all different actors. So be it government, be it civil society. So I think you see this is a complex and very, very much evolving field, and therefore I'm very, very happy that we can today use this occasion and have eminent experts here in the House of the European Union to discuss this, to paint a holistic picture where we stand, what we're going to do about this almost existential threat to our societies. And I would like to start to very much thank the initiators. You said, right? The Embassy of Latvia. Ambassadors, thank you very much for being here. But also our partners, Ambassador of France, the Embassy of Lithuania, because I think this already tells you something, right? So we came together, and I would also like to mention the European Parliament, of course, and the office here. We share our premises together with the colleagues from the European Parliament. So this shows, it's a small example, but it shows that, we come together, different actors. We will hear about different perspectives from different regions. We will hear about, the situation in different member states. I'm also very happy, therefore, to first of all welcome our speakers from Latvia, from France, from Lithuania. I'm very much happy that we are also joined online by colleagues from the European institutions, from the Commission and from the European External Action Service. And we will be joined in a moment by our moderator and eminent expert, Dietmar Pichler, who is on his way. He's very much in demand, so he's still racing from the airport to us, but I think I can promise you he will be here for the panel discussion. Last but not least, I would like to draw your attention to the upcoming European Democracy Shield. So this is the initiative of the Commission, a very holistic and comprehensive strategic framework to strengthen and to promote our democracies. And one of the key pillars is, of course, the fight against disinformation, against manipulation, foreign interference. But it also has other elements that we maybe want to discuss also tonight, which is how to strengthen our societies, how to make them more resilient. And of course, this is also much about education, media literacy, to understand digital literacy, to foster critical thinking. And I think, last but not least, it's also about participation and active involvement of citizens in our democratic processes. So you see a lot of things to discuss. And I'm very, very happy now, Viktor, to welcome you as our keynote speaker. I have to tell you that you already spent quite a lot of hours here in Vienna, really busy. And so thank you very much for taking the time tonight to be with us, to give you the first impulse and a great overview, hopefully. And then we'll have a panel discussion later on. And I think, therefore, last but not least, I'm also looking forward to continue the discussion after this formal parts and outside with a few drinks. And I think it's going to be a great occasion to mingle, to exchange views. And so I'm very much forward to I'm very much looking forward to also meeting you afterwards and continue that discussion. But first of all, thank you very much for being here tonight, and I wish you a good discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and it's a pleasure to be in Vienna always, but it's a particular pleasure to have this conversation here. And the reason why I'm saying this is that our work with this topic started more than 10 years ago, so 2014, something like that. And in the very beginning, we the three Baltic states, some others, Poland obviously. Honestly, we felt quite alone. We would go to Brussels trying to talk to people about this issue of disinformation and Russian propaganda, as we called it back then. And the implied response has always been, look, guys, yeah, we understand it's your problem. Yes, we are fine, so we will help you, but basically don't bother us too much with this. So it's amazing to see how much has changed over the last 10 years. Today, I think we talk about the issue of disinformation, or rather information manipulation, enough, and even more than enough. We are doing a lot, but not enough. And honestly, if someone says they are an expert on disinformation, that's not true, because you cannot be an expert on disinformation. You can be an expert in one of the many fields that have emerged and developed over the last decade. So it's a new world, but also the challenges, quite frankly, are growing. What I want to do is basically give you a take on the problem from Riga, so to say, and also tell you what we do and what we can do together as fellow EU member states. The most important things about the phenomenon itself, about disinformation today, I think, boils down to four things. One is that this is a complex issue that is both domestic and external, and these two are often very difficult to separate. The second one is the fact that disinformation as a kind of malign activity has matured, and you now have much more targeted approaches to it that also rely on other instruments to achieve the same goal. The third is about the fact that it's a global phenomenon and we are playing a global game here. And lastly, the technological field is changing. So a little bit more detail on each. So the way we discovered the problem in Latvia was a perfect mixture of domestic, internal and external. Our problem with disinformation has a name to it. The name is Russia. Russia left after the Soviet occupation a huge media presence in Latvia, so there is a significant share of population who consumes still to this day information in Russian, which is fine, but the problem has been that this has been based on a media system that is controlled by the Kremlin, and that is not a real media system. It's a propaganda machine that pushes the messages that the Kremlin wants to push. And they went into overdrive in 2014 with the beginning of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. This is where we discovered that actually we were the proverbial frog that got boiled because it didn't notice how the temperature rose to the boiling point. And we have fortunately so far escaped the frog's destiny. But it's still, we're still really dealing with this issue. Two things that were a problem, and we can compare notes how this looks from your perspective. What the Russian targeted disinformation did. One was to try and weaken us, our society, our security, by pushing the narrative of a failed state. Everything in Latvia is bad, nothing works, especially since we left the Soviet Union, amplifying domestic cleavages, telling that Russia would have been a better friend economically, and so on and so on. Externally, Russia would talk to audiences in Europe about the Baltic states, and the messages would be the Balts are Nazis, there is a Nazi rebirth there, the Russian speakers are oppressed and cannot speak the language. I can testify that it's complete nonsense, being from the Russian-speaking background myself. Russia loved the idea of, the German word is sowjetische Nachfolgerstaaten. And this is exactly why our embassy in Germany asked the German press not to use the term, because we do not see ourselves as a vestige of the Soviet Union. We were independent nations before the Soviet Union, and this is exactly how we want to, what we want to be in the future. And finally, the goal, the idea that Russia wanted to sell to the European publics about Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia was that these are small, ugly countries. They're not as democratic as you, basically not worth defending. This is the crucial point. Not worth defending. Not part of your community. Not sharing your values. They have not been successful with that. But it's important to mind the problem here. And we saw how the domestic and external gets completely fused together during the COVID epidemic. We, as most other countries, had a problem with vaccine skepticism. People not believing in the efficiency, in the reality of COVID and the efficiency of the vaccines. And guess which country pushed the line against the vaccines, saying, oh, these are dangerous, people are dying because of getting vaccinated and so on. That was Russia. So that was the first example of disinformation actually killing people, because some people, because they believed in the Russian message, did not get vaccinated. Either them or someone else close to them died as a result. So it's a difficult problem. Sometimes this is about a difficult domestic democratic debate, but sometimes it's about interference by a foreign state that doesn't wish you well. And sometimes these foreign states will actually make an effort to present their influence as a legitimate domestic debate, which brings me to the second fact. Disinformation coming from foreign actors is not a standalone phenomenon these days. It's a complex phenomenon. So where Russia, and again, this is our focus, we speak about other countries, but Russia is threat actor number one for us, and I believe for Europe in general. So when Russia does disinformation, it usually also does other things, such as corruption, such as reinforcing economic dependencies, such as supporting political parties and movements that basically destabilize your society. So it's not just one flower, it's a bouquet that they want to present to you. They also do it, and cyber, of course, very important. And they do it in a very targeted and thoughtful way. Earlier, we would say, well, there is this threadmill of, Russian disinformation. It goes on and on and on, and we can ignore it. We know what it is. We are aware of this. It's different these days. Look at what happened in Moldova. Also, I would mention Romania. In Moldova, Russia applied a whole set of tools at its disposal to achieve a very specific result. It failed. It will try again in a couple of months in the parliamentary election in Moldova to achieve the same effect, to basically sabotage Moldovan way into Europe, into the EU. They have a very specific purpose with that. Thirdly, it's a global phenomenon. So the Russian government seeks to manipulate the hearts and minds of the Europeans. We know that. It's not news. It does the same and even more and much more successfully with its own population. The amount of brainwashing bestowed on the population of Russia is pretty astounding. We're watching this, and it's a closed information environment where the government seeks a monopoly on information, a monopoly on values and views. But where we really are losing to Russia and, honestly, some other actors is outside of the European sphere, outside of the so-called West. In the global South, Russia is visible. I talked recently to journalists from Africa, and they tell that kids in Africa go to YouTube and they can watch for free pretty funny Russian cartoons for kids. And these cartoons, of course, are not entirely innocent. They have a message that inclines kids to think positively about Russia. And then after that, the next stage is, of course, to push this narrative that Russia is a friend of Africa, unlike the West, which is colonial, and so on and so on. And this global game, to be frank with you, we are not doing too well. And lastly, the fourth thing about information manipulation that is really important, the technological change. So we've been through one. We went from normal traditional media to online platforms as the main avenue for dissemination of ideas, information, and so on. And we have almost now learned how to deal with that. We have the Digital Services Act in the EU and so on. There is another wave coming. And here is a question. How many of you have used ChatGPT or something similar over the last week? Please raise your hands. Fantastic. 400 million users globally, which is a 800%, if I'm correct at maths. I'm not good at it, but I think it went from 50 million 2 years ago to 400 million now. That's just ChatGPT. In Latvia, the most recent data is 83% of companies use a large language model. 1 in 3 employees in these companies do that. And I think there is no doubt that these are going to be the most important, or at least one of the most important avenues for dissemination of disinformation. So what is the AI going to do for disinformation? A lot of things. First of all, AI itself is not a friend of truth. It doesn't care about truth. It's prone to hallucinating. Let's put that aside. It's the innate property of this technology at the moment, at least. But it also gives a lot of advantages to those who want to use information manipulation and to autocrats. First of all, it destroys public trust, the trust in information, because when we know that audio or video can be synthetic, first of all, it's true, and you can push so-called deepfakes, but that's just the beginning of the problem. The most important part of the problem here is that when we know that this is possible, there is nothing that we can trust. And especially we are not going to trust things that we don't like, that we don't want to be true. It's going to fragment the public space. Already today, the biggest problem in elections is not deepfakes. The biggest problem is that as a politician, you can create messaging that will address specifically each and every individual or group of people with the message that they like, actually in the language that they like. They record you once and then they disseminate multiple versions of you. What's the problem with that? We're used to a different way of doing democracy. If I'm a political candidate, I say things in a public space and I'm responsible for what I'm saying, because everyone hears that, both those who agree and those who don't. Now, it's a completely different situation. So you can fragment the way you address people. And also, I think very soon we are going to have AI assistants that will work on our behalf to sift through the information on the internet and basically only offer us what we want to hear. So if I don't want to hear politics, I will be completely isolated from that. Or I can say I only want to hear opinions that I agree with, because otherwise I don't want this trouble with difficult ideas in the morning, also in the evening. So I basically don't want to hear it. And of course, for the manipulators, it's a perfect tool. It makes manipulation faster, cheaper, and much more efficient. Also, the models themselves. So all of you who raised your hands, there is a great chance that if you asked a question that is important to the Russian government, the answer that you got was manipulated by the Russian government. The recent discovery was that a Russian disinformation network called Pravda effectively manipulated models. The way they did it was they created multiple websites containing the Kremlin messaging, basically. These sites were not visible. Normal people would not find those. Guess what? The models, the way they create their body of data, they scrape the internet. They take all of this in, and they use this low-quality information, so to say, to give you answers to your questions. This is how it works. And that's just the beginning of it, because this is a pretty simple way of grooming LLMs, as they call them. There will be much more efficient ways to do these things that will not be noticed, that will go hidden for a long time. So there is a huge problem. And to be frank, the AI companies are not living up to their responsibility. We have been trying to have a dialogue with them on these issues, and without going into the detail, I can tell you we are not getting the response that we believe is serious from them. So quickly, what do we do about this? First of all, I think in Latvia, we today would say that we're not trying to sanitize the information environment, we're trying to immunize our society. And the most important thing of immunize, and we have done it effectively, we're exposed to attempts at information manipulation, but we're not that vulnerable. And the reason we're not that vulnerable is because there is a high degree of awareness in our society. And awareness doesn't just mean that people know factually, okay, Russia engages in these activities and so on, and then I can forget about it. No, people understand the stakes. People understand what Russia wants to achieve with that. So there is no trust in anything related to the messenger. So we understand the problem and connect it to the big picture. The second one is media, and we have been doing everything we can to support a more diverse, pluralistic media system. And it's about investing money. I understand in Austria, you're probably a very rich country and society where this is not such a big challenge. For us, a very small language market, it's extremely important. Now, coordination, and this is sounds like a very mundane thing, but you wouldn't believe how long and how much effort it has taken us to actually come to establishing a structure within government under the Prime Minister's office that sets policy and works on it and does things and coordinates the different agencies involved in doing very practical things, discovery and monitoring and analysis, and then response. The next very important thing has been the Digital Services Act, something that even 7 years ago lots of people thought was completely unthinkable. We now have, I think, an amazing and smart framework for making online platforms responsible for dealing with social harms of disinformation. It does not criminalize disinformation, but it gives us tools to make sure that platforms take the issue seriously and act. Honestly, we're just beginning to use this tool, and the platforms are doing everything in their power not to invest in this. And after the 7th of October in Israel, we saw how some of these platforms were inundated with anti-Semitic, hostile, violent content that was not taken down despite being pointed at. So there is a lot to be done there. Lastly, we are also trying to enlighten our society and be smarter at doing these things. And again, it's about investment. You need to invest in technology, you need to invest in experts. In our case, we support work done under the roof of the NATO Stratcom Center in Riga. So it's not a NATO organization, it's independent, but it's NATO certified. And they are doing today, they are expanding their work on AI and information environment, and the Latvian government is behind this project. And what we are going to do finally, the last point, because I think I'm short of time, we know AI is going to be a problem. We are going to ask people not to shy away from the devices, not to stop using ChatGPT, but on the contrary, use it, pay attention, learn how to do it, learn about the risks. The more we know this technology, the better positioned we are to try and deal with some of the negative effects. I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think now it's up to me to say something. Hello, everybody, and thank you for organizing this extremely important event. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here with such distinguished guests. And I liked already what I heard before this keynote, because the ways disinformation and foreign interference and also Russian influence is disseminated is, let's say, they have a big menu. And I just want to use the chance to a couple of words about what recently happened in the EU Parliament, when a kind of obscure German party invited an American professor who told the audience that the EU is responsible for warmongering. It was not his only message. He is well known for his anti-Western, anti-EU messaging and his quite, let's say, mild stance on the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And I find this really remarkable, because the clips, little clips of this performance he gave in the EU Parliament were disseminated all around the world in social media, and Instagram, TikTok, and all the other platforms, and millions of people around the world saw this, in my opinion, because if I say it's in general, he may sue me, but in my opinion, and I think in the opinion of many others, especially my fellow colleagues who are from the European Union, they don't deserve this kind of propaganda by a guy who calls himself a professor, who actually is a professor. And I personally think that anonymous trolls are a big problem, but when we are facing academics, people with high influence, people who have a very high rank in their society and are very influential also on the political establishment, this bothers me much more, I have to say, especially when we see how much reach and influence they can reach. So I want to start the discussion, and I will have only one round of questions because we have a limited time, and we want also to give you the opinion and the the possibility to ask something about disinformation or something what we can do about it, and I think we should take the chance today. So, where should I start? I will not start like in the list by asking the questions, and I think I should not introduce our guests. I think they should introduce themselves, because first of all, you can do it much better than I can do it, and then we can also save a little bit of time. And I want to start with Aleksandra Ketlerienė. She's senior deputy editor at a very important channel in Lithuania. Can you give us some insights of your work, and also, what are the challenges at the moment? How do you see the situation, not only in Lithuania, but also on the European level?
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Aleksandra Ketlerienė, and I'm from our public broadcaster, Lithuanian National Radio and Television, but I work online. And I think that I should mention that I have a Russian background, too. My father was Russian, so and my mother is Polish. But I'm Lithuanian, so you can understand the great history of our region. So it was my destiny to be in disinformation topic, because, you know, I know Russian, I know Polish, I know Lithuanian, and I know English. So it happened that I came to this topic, and actually, if you come to my place and look at my bookshelf, you would think that I'm obsessed with Putin, because I have so many books about Kremlin and Russia and everything what is going on there. As a journalist, I consider myself and my colleagues as people who are on the front line of the disinformation, fake news, propaganda, because all those people and trolls, they are targeting journalists and our credibility. All the surveys show that when something big happens, for example, pandemic, war in Ukraine, people tend to turn to public broadcasters in whole Europe, not only in Lithuania. So imagine what would happen if somebody puts propaganda piece or disinformation on public broadcaster. It would undermine our credibility. It would do really big damage to our society and to media. So as a journalist, I think that we have a really big task to protect people from disinformation. And actually, I'm a lecturer in at Vilnius University, and I say to my students that, you know, people call us watchdogs. We are journalists who are watching the government, but we are also watchdogs protecting people, society from disinformation, fake news, and propaganda. And I think that in Lithuania, as we are in the front line, we know it quite well. But also, I want to tell you one story. It's very short, but I think that it shows the root of the problem. Last year, I was in Washington on the fellowship, and I went to the great museum of the victims of communism. And I saw two Americans, and they were debating one woman. And I got curious because I'm a journalist. So they were talking about a woman from Czechoslovakia who, during the World War II, was fighting Nazis, but was killed by communists. And they couldn't understand it. They were talking between themselves and were like, how it is possible? She was fighting Nazis. Why communists killed her? And I couldn't help myself. I told them, guys, I can explain. Do you know Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact? And guess what? They didn't hear about it at all. And I think that this is the problem. The biggest scam in our time is that Russia won the Second World War, not Russia. Not only Russian people, Ukrainians, Lithuanians, Latvians, Estonians, Poles, and so on. And the world doesn't know the history of our region. And I think that this is the big task for all of us, to tell the world about us, about our history, and what really happened from our point of view. So.
Thank you very much for these insights. I mean, I'm not a historian, but it also happened to quite some Austrian people who fought against the Nazi regime, and then under the Soviet occupation, they came to the Gulag. So that happened, and unfortunately, historians are not so active in revealing all of that historical facts. So that brings me to another colleague from a Baltic country. And why should we always discriminate the people who are online with us? And by the way, thank you to the tech team. This is a very nice installation here to see our guests who are online with us. Siim Kumpas, can you introduce your work, your daily experiences, and can you tell us a little bit how you see the current situation regarding disinformation and foreign interference?
Sure. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. It's always a question mark. Is it okay?
We hear.
Okay, good. I wanted to be sure. So, welcome everybody. I'm glad to join you, even if just online this time, unfortunately. My name is Siim Kumpas. I'm from Estonia, so again, also from the Baltics, as said. For the past 3 years, I've been working here in Brussels in an organization called the European External Action Service, which is essentially the foreign and to some extent the defense ministry of the EU, or the closest equivalent to one. Coming from Estonia, I'm also speaking Russian as the previous speaker. I think I can also, join the pun that it was sort of my destiny to follow this topic, and I never chose it. Maybe the topic chose me. I've been working on disinformation and information manipulation for more than 7 years now, first in Estonia and now in Brussels. But to the point, maybe just to add a bit of a different angle to the discussion, and then happy to pass on the baton to the next speaker. At the EAS, when we started work on first Russian disinformation, as a direct result of their war against Ukraine back in 2014, we were just a small, tiny little team looking at Russia as the main threat actor and looking at the countries in the immediate east of the European Union, including Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia, and others. And we started with trying to understand the whole problem of disinformation, so false and or misleading content. And for the first years, we really focused on the what is being said, what is the narrative, where's the lie, is it intentional, what's the purpose, and so on. But then we understood that this is too narrow of a view, and we, as the EU is great at coming up with new, horribly long-sounding acronyms, we came up with something called FIMI, or Foreign Information Manipulation and Interference. And no, this is not a synonym to disinformation, just so that the ES can claim its own word. Not really. It really is a new way of looking at the problem as such. If disinformation concerns just the what, FIMI concerns the who is behind an information operation, the how, what are the manipulative tactics used to create, publish, disseminate, promote disinformation or true information, because you can also manipulate masses with information that is factually correct, with no disinformation in sight. But we're also concerned about the scale and the impact of information manipulation, and not just what people put into the information environment, again, be it disinformation, malinformation, or other types of misleading information. We are also concerned how state actors such as Russia and China are trying to take high quality information out of the information environment. So censorship, information suppression, especially when conducted by China, who's been doing this domestically for decades. Russia as well, but internationally to a lesser extent, but they really are picking up speed there as well. So with the FIMI concept, we are really trying to look at a broader threat landscape, not just the what, but the how and the other aspects as mentioned. And if I were to quote our High Representative who was speaking on this very issue just last week here in Brussels. She said that if disinformation is the bullet through the heart of democracy, then FIMI is the gun, the whole arsenal around it. So that's the equivalent. And that's what we're trying to capture, build tools to detect that manipulative activity online, and also training people, so forth, but also taking very clear legislative steps, and also diplomatic ones, such as sanctions. I would maybe draw to a close here and keep this more conversational. Hand it over back to the moderator, and look forward to the questions you might have later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Especially thank you for highlighting how complex it is to analyze these influence operations, and also for mentioning 2014. This is a very important year, and I'm really glad that at least the European Union saw that something is happening and something huge is happening, because many of the nation states did not see it. Which brings me to Helmut Brandstätter, not because Helmut, and not because I'm talking about Helmut, but because he's Austrian and he is a member of the European Parliament at the Renew Group. What is going on the European level? If we speak about the Parliament, did you saw the speech of Jeffrey Sachs, and how does it feel if in this holy place like the Parliament, such individuals can spread their things? Well, how do you and your MEP colleagues speak about that?
Yeah, good evening. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here. I was late because we had in the European Parliament a long meeting for Democracy Shield. So there is a commission in the European Parliament now for about 18 months, and our job is Democracy Shield. And I'm a young politician, as you can see. I stumbled in politics rather late. I was a journalist most of my life, and I still am an author, at least. I'm writing a book right now, should finish by Monday, about Trump, Putin, and their European puppets. And that's something I will also talk about. But I want to start with a French magazine, L'Express, because there is something which I found today on the airport. There's an interview with Vladislav Surkov. And why do I tell it? Because you said about all this disinformation and about Jeffrey Sachs and what they say. We are too lazy to say what they say. You know, I just tell you two things he said in this interview. The first thing, and I mean, he says a lot of things and really interesting things. First thing is that he said the Ukraine doesn't exist. There is no Ukraine. Is one of the. It's not about NATO. It's about that the Ukraine doesn't exist. And he says it's an entire political artificial being. So Ukraine doesn't exist. It's one of the things. Why did you read that in an Austrian newspaper? Did you read it in any other newspaper? So the philosopher or the magician, as they say, the magician of Putin says, Ukraine doesn't exist. You know what else he says? He says, there are no borders to Russia. There are no borders. We don't have borders. Wherever there is Russian influence on the world, there is Russia. So there are no borders. And he says, we only have to take care that we don't take too much into your mouth, you know? So he even talks about that they are eating us. That's the facts. Where do you read that? You read about Jeffrey Sachs, and everybody says, yeah, it's NATO's fault. But we don't hear about that Putin's surrounding says there is no Ukraine, we take the next day, there is no borders for us. I think that's very important. And the next thing he says, and there I come to the next point, he also says that the liberal democracy is not stronger anymore in the eyes of many people. And I think that's an important point, because we thought that in 1990, the end of history, and now it's the other way around. And that brings me to Europe, that brings me to the European parties who are part of Putin's system. And that I can tell you even from today. So we're sitting together, the different groups in this, in the parliament, but also in this commission for disinformation and democracy shield. So what's happening? The people from the so-called patriots, so today it was an Hungarian guy and Netherlands woman, whatever, or French woman, and they say, you can't say anymore what you want to say. A DSA is censorship. So you can't. So I said afterwards, tell me one sentence you're not allowed to say anymore. of course, they don't know what they should answer. Because, of course, you can say DSA does not say that you're not allowed to say anything more. But that's something else we don't say. So they run around and say the European Union, and you even hear it sometimes, it's EU DSSR, you know, because it's a dictatorship as well. And you're not allowed to say anymore. It's a dictatorship, it's censorship, and we are all poor, and you know it's the oligarch, it's Soros. You know, last meeting, there was someone from the Patriots that said everything is organized by Soros. All the Western media is Soros, so that's the reason why we can say you're laughing here. But there is 35% of the Austrians believe it. And that brings me to the next point about what people believe it, because we talk about the Baltic countries, Estonia. Today, we also had, I'm sorry when I watch my cell phone, but that's where I have the information. We had a very important information, a very important talk with a woman from Estonia, and she explained to us the situation in Estonia. And as you said, of course, there are many Estonians, many people speak Russian as well, and she explained that out of, she said around 65% are national Estonians, and the rest is Russians and others. Out of those 65%, 95% say NATO is important, Russians are dangerous, and so on, and we believe in the media. Out of the Russian-speaking, it's around 20% who say NATO is good, but they are not afraid of Russia. So why is that? Are they stupid? No, they are not stupid. Because the information and because the propaganda is much better. We have to admit that the Russians are much better. And if you, I read a lot about that. You know about Prigozhin. He was not the first one to build this troll farm, but it was 2013 already. What did we do in 2013? We thought the world is everything is fine, and what could be wrong? And they already organized what they will do in the long run. And the last point I want to say, the other one, because you said about vaccine, disinformation. Of course, the Russians, they said vaccine is dangerous and don't do that, and the whole COVID movement. At the same time, in Moscow, it was ordered that if you want to work for the city and the state and so on, you have to be vaccinated. Did anybody know that here? They forced people to be vaccinated, and here they made at the same time the propaganda, the vaccine is dangerous. You know, these are things, we don't hear it because we are still in a situation, I think, and I will close now the situation, most of us have not understood how dangerous the situation is we are right now. And when I sit here, as I said in these meetings, I realize that the danger comes from outside, comes from Russia, of course, and they are very well organized, much better, but it also comes from inside, because, and that he also explains, Surkov in this interview, because strong men are also, or illiberal societies, we know it from Orban, many people don't feel it so bad. You know, we have so many complicated problems, so why not a few people who would solve the problems? So authoritarianism is getting more and more popular, and that we also haven't understood. So all these points where I think the liberal society at the moment is not strong enough. I have the feeling, and that's my optimism, when I say in this group, from the right-wing ECR, where the Poles, for instance, of course, they are all against Russia. They know why. You know, history told them. Even to the Greens, of course, and to the left, there's a broad majority who says we have to do something and we have to enforce the DSA. On the other hand, I read today that the Commissioner Virkkunen said we have to make DSA simpler. And then I thought, what does she mean? I know that Musk is, and she admits that, and everybody has to admit it, Musk is already putting a lot of pressure on the European Commission in order not to enforce the DSA. And here again, we have to be very strong, not only because of tariffs. This is at least as important as tariffs, that we watch the pressure Musk will put on the European Commission. And thank God there's a strong parliament, and we will fight. Thank you.
Yeah, because I heard European Commission, then there is no other way than to continue with Alberto Rabachin, who is Deputy Head of Unit and will give us his insights about his daily work and his perspective on the current situation.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation to this event. It's great to talk about this topic, which is the topic I work on since 2017, 2018, when the Commission started to look at this problem following the 2016 election in the US. I would say that, since the beginning, the real issue was to strike the right balance between, protecting fundamental rights, freedom of expression, but acknowledging that there is an issue and that we have to tackle these issues in a serious and impactful way. This is, let's say, the motto that has driven our actions. And also the model that has somehow shaped the strategy of the Commission, which is a strategy that is based on several pillars. Since a couple of years, we have a very advanced regulation, the Digital Services Act, that not only tackle issue related to illegal content, but also for the first time make platform responsible also for harmful content that is or harmful use of their services that could that brings risk for society. And here is also the key point. This regulation is not censorship; is a regulation that asks platforms to be responsible for the functioning of their system, for the system not to be maliciously used to influence, including not to influence democratic processes, elections, civic discourse with malicious behavior. So this is regulation. Then we have what we now can call co-regulation, but it was self-regulation until a few months ago, which is the Code of Practice on Disinformation, which is a set of 43 commitments and 128 measures that very large online platform, TikTok, Meta, Google, and Microsoft have agreed upon and are implementing to a certain extent. I will give you maybe more details later. And all these commitment measures have been developed with a multi-stakeholder approach. Not only them, but also civil society organizations, fact checkers, researchers have been involved and are involved under this code to work together to fight this phenomenon. So again, here, this multi-stakeholder approach is another guarantee that what is being done to tackle disinformation is not censorship. There are several actors and involved. And then, of course, we have a third pillar, which is, empowering civil society to fight, to be resilient against disinformation. We have supported the European Digital Media Observatories and its 14 hubs. I'm happy to announce also that we are opening a new hub that will be dedicated to fight Russian propaganda, in particular on the eastern border of Europe. And I think this will be a very valuable add-on. And then, of course, we have activities, action that foster also news media, which is important to have a strong and functioning media ecosystem, as well media literacy activities. This is my sort of daily job is to work on these elements. And I will stop here and give the floor to the next speaker.
Thank you very much. I like the term multi-stakeholder approach because it shows that so many different people can do something against this phenomena and not only one institution can handle it alone. I will go to the next speaker, and I'm very glad that we have somebody from France here. And Thalia, Bayle, please, can you give us a little bit? I know we speak about Europe and we discuss the big picture, but I'm very curious, as France is such an important country, one of the most important countries in the European Union. Maybe you can give us also some perspective how the situation is there regarding influence campaigns and disinformation, but of course also the European perspective.
Yes, thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. Just to introduce myself, my name is Thalia Bayle. I work within the communications and press department at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in France, within a unit that has been created 2 years ago now, which is in charge of monitoring social media and establishing strategies to answer to information threats in general. So I will try to give you just a quick overview of how the French institutions have evolved in the last 5 years to sort of answer and confront the information threats. So since 2020, all the French institutions have been reorganized to face these new threats around 3 kind of big pillar blocks, I would say. The first block is situational awareness. So this meant that we needed to increase our knowledge of the informational environment in general, because if you don't know what's happening, then you can only work with anecdotal evidence. So we needed to increase our knowledge of what is exactly happening. And this led us to the creation of an agency that's called Viginum. Maybe some of you have already heard of it. It was created in 2020, and it's the French national agency dedicated specifically to detect, analyze, and characterize digital foreign interferences. That's the legal definition that has been given to this phenomenon in France. It's under the authority of the Prime Minister, and it has very strong capacities of investigation in open source online, and it publishes regularly reports deciphering and describing campaigns, operations that have been conducted online by foreign actors. So that has been a way that the French government reacted in order to give our authorities a more comprehensive picture of what was actually happening. And just to give you a little bit of more context on why was the agency created exactly, so the trigger was a particularly tragic event in France. Samuel Paty, who was a professor in France, was killed, assassinated in a jihadi attack in 2020. So this gave birth to a series of controversies online, particularly in some Arabic countries, which led to a diplomatic escalation and in turn to physical consequences. First, a protest against our embassy in Islamabad, and a knife attack against diplomatic personnel in Saudi Arabia. And so, confronted to that, the reaction was to build this kind of agency, and also for our diplomatic network, it was a wake-up call. And since then, just for you to understand that when the diplomatic service looks at what is information threats, it looks at it not as a reputational problem, but as a security issue. And this is why Viginum exactly was created. So, in relation to that, of course, we focused the second pillar on top of situational awareness is, of course, the response. So what do you do when you are faced with such information threats? And so for this, we basically have three two actions, I would say, as a diplomatic service. First, we have a short-term reaction mode, which is more focused on the debunking spirit. debunking has its own limits, but when the volumes are extremely high on social media, when a very big disinformation is running on, sometimes it can be useful to debunk because it will cut the virality. So in this spirit, you can correct the false allegations either officially or by providing some fact checkers or journalists, bloggers with data that they would use to debunk themselves, then to cut the virality. So that has been one of the ways. I can give you just one example of how we've been doing that as a diplomatic service recently. The Russian embassy in South Africa 6 months ago shared a video on its official X account, a video that was imitating a broadcaster, an official broadcaster in France that's called BFM TV, presenting a video of French soldiers, so-called French soldiers and mercenaries being present in Ukraine. And so through this video, pushing the narrative that yes, France was sending mercenaries in Ukraine. But when you would listen to the video carefully, you would hear an accent. So you could see that they weren't really French. So what we did as a diplomatic service, confronted to that narrative that was actually shared through an official channel, our embassy in South Africa replied by saying, with a humoristic tone, saying, we have seen a lot of these fake news ongoing, but this one is really bad. Maybe you should send your actors to the French Alliance to take some French classes. So just to tell you that this is, for us as a diplomatic service, it's a bit of a challenge to be a bit innovative in the response. But also to tell you that the fact that Russia is not even now spreading disinformation through only covert operation, but through its official language, official statements. For us diplomats, it's a bit complicated because it means that you do not negotiate on the basis of a common ground of fact anymore. So it narrows down the field to negotiate. You don't speak as equals on a common basis of facts. And so that really complicates the work for diplomacy. I wanted also to highlight the fact that another technique that we have tried to use, and this is based also on the work that Viginum has been doing, is to accompany the issue of the technical reports produced by Viginum with public denunciation and public exposure of the networks. When foreign actors try to interfere in a debate or try to interfere in an election through information manipulation, rather than debunking content, because it's a bit endless and it has its own limits, you can take the political decision to publicly expose the networks. And that's something that has been done. Just to give you an example, in February 2024, our minister publicly denounced an operation that was called Portal Combat. Viginum issued a technical report on that. It was about 200 fake websites that were disseminating Russian propaganda targeting France, Germany, and Poland. And so the decision that was made was to publicly denounce, and the three ministers of the three countries did it in spring afterwards with a public statement and a joint statement, also reiterating their full engagement towards information integrity, etc. So that's another way of reacting to information threats as a diplomatic service. And last but not least, I want to come back to the Digital Services Act. So, of course, That is the key for us also. It's regulating platforms, and this engagement in dialogue with platforms is absolutely key. For us, it's not a matter of censorship. Of course, it's not about telling what is good content or what is not, or what is bad content. It's not about telling people what they can say or cannot say. No, it's about making the companies responsible of their algorithms that are also responsible for the dissemination, the vast dissemination of malign content. And it's also a way to make them responsible of ensuring that there are enough resources dedicated to moderation. Moderation in different languages, and that is very much what we support as the French government. Thank you very much.
I thank you especially for highlighting how important it is to expose them and also to remind us what we are dealing with and who we are negotiating with. It's also a matter of trust, I guess, especially for the diplomats, if you are aware what kind of disinformation and blatant lying campaigns they are targeting against us. You wanted to say something?
I just want to say, first thing about the Digital Service Act, it's about fact-checking and the responsibility of the platforms, and they don't do it anymore. I mean, we know that Musk, he fired all those people who did it. Zuckerberg says he doesn't know anymore. Google doesn't do it anymore. So that's what they should do. They don't do it anymore. And the question is, how do we force them to do? And the second thing is your response to the badly speaking French guy. It's funny, but I don't know if it's really enough. Why don't we kick out those so-called diplomats? You know, I mean, the boss of the Austrian DSA, of the internal spy, information service, he said there is around 50 spies, Russian spies here. So why don't we kick them out? Because we're afraid that they kick out Austrians as well. So I think we are always two steps after them, and that really is a problem. And last point, talking about two steps after them, Telegram. We also got some information from the Estonian woman today about Telegram. And the next thing for the European Commission, because according to DSA, if you have more than 42 million users, then you have to be, then you are subject to the DSA. So she's sure, and she could explain it, that there are way more than 42 million users. The Commission is slow here. But what you probably are not on, I'm sure you're not on those Telegram channels, but Telegram is not only a kind of a WhatsApp, a messenger, but they're also organizing news or fake news. There is terrorism, there is pedophilia, and there is incredible propaganda on it. And we don't do anything against it. So that really drives me crazy. Today I ask them why. So where's the police? Yeah, we try, we try. We are really too slow. We watch, they are attacking us. They're having a hybrid war against us. And we're standing there and say, okay, but we have a liberal democracy and that will always be stronger. No, it will not if we're not fighting for it.
Ketlerienė.
I wanted to react to that fake video. At least they put some effort in it, because I saw it was really funny on the Russian on Russian propaganda channel. I saw that they took the piece from Germany's news channel. They cut the sentence "Russian propaganda is saying," and they run it like the fact. You know, they just cut off the beginning. Russia propaganda is saying, and then put it like German news. So at least they, I don't know, found some actors for it. So, you know.
So my privilege of asking question ends here, and I want to give the torch to you, to the audience. We have still a couple of minutes left. Oh, I got so much power, now I can choose. So please ask quick questions, so all of you have the chance to ask something. Do we have some microphone? Yeah, please here. Let's start with the lady with the white shirt, please.
Hello. Thank you very much for very interesting talk. Thank you also to the speakers in the beginning. My name is Veronica. I'm from Diplomatic Academy, and I'd like to ask about the role of neutral states in fighting the hybrid warfare. So given the unique position of the neutral states, how would you assess their role, and does this fight present rather the opportunity or more of a challenge to the neutral states? Thank you.
Maybe we can collect a couple of questions because.
Thanks. My name is Gertrude. Thank you for the talk, Gertrude Oehlmark. I have two questions addressed to Mr. Brandstätter. Question number one: we have a far more right-leaning European Parliament after the last election than we had before. Do you see a difference in the attitude to disinformation from this new Parliament to the old one? And the second, I mean, I'm a normal citizen, yeah? And I read the newspaper, I do the media, but I don't have a feeling I have any chance to decide what's false or what is right. You have been a journalist, can you give me tips?
As a former vice president of ABC Television, I've had an interest in this topic for a long time. And it's very frustrating hearing about what the French and some of the other countries are doing. So the question is, people can't detect deep fakes, but tech can detect deep fakes. But you have to do it quickly, or else, especially if it's 2 days before an election, as has happened, it's too late and people get manipulated. So even if you push information to people by SMS or whatever and require it by law, let's say, how do you get people to pay attention to it? Media literacy is one answer, but it doesn't go far enough. It almost seems like an insoluble problem, but I hope you have some answers. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for quite informative statement. And I am Jun Saito, and I have two short questions. First question is, how is the possibility of cooperation, intergovernmental cooperation among European states between intelligence service, foreign ministries, or internal ministries? And the second question is, how to reach the people who is fixed in the bubble of alternative facts, because I know from my experience there is often allergic to so-called traditional media like Korea, BBC, or CNN. Thank you very much.
And this gentleman here, please. Final one.
Oh. Well, again, thank you very much. And it's probably with the many questions difficult for you to remember them and answer. I want to point to the following thing. I think with artificial intelligence, this is such a technical revolution, which is amazing. And when we think back in history, of course, there were always efforts to, when there were problems, to do some legal regulations, international conventions, and so forth. Now, I wonder whether with the subject you discussed, fake news and disinformation, do you think it is more because of this exceptional technical revolution that artificial intelligence arrived, or is it not possible from a legal point of view, is there lack of legal persecution in fighting against fake news and wrong information? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the questions. Now I have two challenges. The first challenge is to summarize your very good questions. And the second challenge is to read my own handwriting, which is since school very, very tough for me, but I will try. So we got here one question that I totally remember because it's very interesting and it's, I think, directly directed at our member from a neutral country, Helmut Brandstätter. How can neutral states play a special role in the hybrid warfare? Yeah, this is a professional technical term, of course. Then we had the question how to reach people, which brings us also to the question, can the legal system do something against disinformation? And is it because of the technical revolution, or is it something that we would have anyway, but maybe different? AI was mentioned several times. And the question is media literacy enough? It is not enough. I think I totally agree with you. Oh, I should not have an opinion as a moderator, but you have me. Yeah, that's also something. Media literacy, yes or no? How far can it go? And yeah, did I forget something very important?
About the media.
Yeah,
people don't want to read traditional media. I think it's very important.
Yes, the role of the traditional media is something I think also very important, and that also reflects with our panel, which is great because we have somebody from the traditional media, and this is why I want to start with you in that case and ask you. Okay. No, not you. You have been traditional media. You are now in. You are not traditional. You are now an MEP. You are now an. More traditional than write a book. Yeah. That is also true. We need to talk more about books. He is publishing good books, but not all books are good. Yeah? I made a survey. Can you imagine that 50% of the geopolitical books are anti-Western and anti-EU? Yeah, so, but now, okay, so I will ask you first now. You got it. Because but it's about the neutrality. It's about
I try to be short.
What can neutral states do about hybrid warfare differently than others?
Now we could talk about neutrality for a long time. Actually, when a neutral country is attacked, it's not neutral anymore. It has to defend itself. We are attacked. There is hybrid warfare against Austria. As far as hybrid warfare and disinformation is concerned, we cannot be neutral anymore because we're attacked. We don't want to be victims, so we have to fight. And I think that's the answer. I'm sorry, we are not neutral as far as that is concerned, so we have to fight. The next thing is about disinformation. How do I decide? You know, a funny story. When I saw Biden was still president and he was walking along like this and speaking strange things, and I thought, oh, this must be fake. You know, and then I thought, is it really fake? So what can you do? You go on Google and you try to find what's happening, and then you find out, okay, it was true. That's what we learned with Hugo Portisch, you know, with for the foreigners, the journalist of Austria, who died a few years ago, and he was, you know, we all learned from him. Check, recheck, double check. That what you talked about gatekeeping, but that was the job of the media. You have two possibilities. You find media that you trust, and even when I was editor-in-chief of Courier, I said, especially with young people, read 2 newspapers. Don't trust one, read 2. So. Check, recheck, double check, or you have a media you can trust. And even those media, who are good media, make mistakes. I think that's a fact, and we don't get you can't do anything about that. Yeah, talking about fake news again. Had you thought that you know, the vice president of the US and a few other people would go in a signal group before they attack another country? If I tell you this story, you say, "Ah, it's stupid." Huh? Okay, but that you see, everything's possible, and it's so difficult to believe. And I think that's talking about the traditional media. They also lost a lot of trust. And I think it's a job of the politics, but also of politicians, but also of the media to regain trust. And you lose it very quickly and you regain it very slowly. So that's really something to do, especially for public TV. And last thing I want to say, about technical revolution, because someone said technical revolution. That's what I learned in a seminar about artificial intelligence. One day there will be artificial intelligence that will tell you if it's true or not true. So there will be an artificial intelligence fact checking, and then the question is if it's influenced already by millions of Russian disinformation, and then it's not true anymore. So you see how complicated it is. But the last thing is, and that's also very important, it's not only, because you said it's not only about disinformation and fake news. It's also when I'm on Twitter, you know, I'm still on Twitter, and I do it because I have so many followers. And so people write, someone writes, "You are a Nazi." You know, if someone get up here and it calls me a Nazi, I go to the prosecutor, and this person will be in trouble because it's defamation. What do I do on X? I write, and what do they write back? We checked it. There's nothing wrong. This is, this is the problem. So I called the police and I said, "What can I do?" And they say, "Okay, give me the exact dates." And I said, they will try to find out. X will give it to them or will not. And here I mean, that's what I really call on the Commission. We have to be much stronger, and please don't be afraid of Mr. Musk. Don't be afraid of him. We are Europeans. We are 500 million. We are consumers. We are strong. We can do it. We have to rebuild. We have to build a few more digital platforms. Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of things to do, but we are stronger than we believe sometimes, and we are not afraid of the Americans. By the way, we cooperate with the Canadians. The British come back, and then we'll win it.
Well, we are almost out of time. I apologize for my summary. ChatGPT could do it much better, by the way. Yeah? And ChatGPT has also a better handwriting than I have, or typing. At least you can read it much easier. So,
Mistral, by the way.
Good that you don't use this Chinese one. So I want to ask the audience for the closing remarks, and I hope you still have the summary of our audience comments and questions, and I would start with you, please. Yeah.
Okay, so I would like to react to some questions. One on the neutrality. I think the big problem after 3 years of war that Europe, Western Europe, still doesn't understand that the war is going on not only against Ukraine, but against all of us, against democracy. And this is not a war of Ukraine or of Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, of Baltic states. No, they are targeting democracies, and democracies should react. That's one thing. About media literacy. Well, sometimes, you should start from very simple things. For example, one time on Facebook, I saw that Lithuanian people started suddenly sharing information about a missing child. And it was spread all over Lithuanian Facebook, And I was curious because if it really happened, we will publish it and we will help to find that child. But I found the original post, and it was a child that went missing 5 years ago in Macedonia. So people, they don't even check. They see the information that gets on their emotion. That, okay, the child is missing, I should do something, I will share. They don't check, they spread the lies, So I do media literacy lectures, and I tell very basic, simple things to people, and they are very surprised about that. About the media, traditional media. Yes, this is the really big problem, and in Lithuania too, we have some alternative channels, let's say, who are pretending to be journalists. But the problem is, it's very funny. When people are writing that we, journalists, we are propagandists and we are not neutral and so on, but they are cheering for the channels that tell them what to think. So my theory is that they don't want the truth. They want just the verification of their own opinion. And if we talk about professional journalism, this is not the case. Our job is not to give you what to think. Our job is to find the truth. So yes, we have a really big challenge, and of course we are a target. We get threats, we get many nasty comments, we get many things, because they want to silence us. They want us to leave our job and to leave society without facts. And the last thing about ChatGPT and artificial intelligence, I see my personal mission to raise strong journalists for Lithuania. So I work with my students and we are talking with ChatGPT, So we had some curious cases. I will tell you about two. First, we had last year when Tucker Carlson talked with Putin. I think you saw that interview. Yeah, great one. So I have the discussion with my students whether the journalists should do that kind of interview. And one group had to find arguments that they should, another one that they shouldn't, and the third one had to ask ChatGPT. And it was very funny because ChatGPT gave different answers in different languages. Yeah. In Russian, it said, of course, yeah. You should be speaking with Putin. In English, they said, no, maybe not. Yeah, and another case was this year, and about a month ago, we were talking about freedom of speech. And freedom of speech is not a freedom of reach. And they asked DeepSeek, the Chinese ChatGPT, and they asked, can you tell us the countries that don't have the freedom of speech? And DeepSeek said, of course. And he started to write Russia, Belarus, Iran, China, and then deleted everything. So what is my point? My point is that I show to my students that, okay, you can use ChatGPT, of course, but the problem is that you should check everything, because this is not, very information that you should be relying on, especially if you want to become a journalist. Because unfortunately, the disinformation spreads very fast, and we are a little bit slower with the fact-checking, but I agree with you that everybody should have the media or journalists that you trust, that you rely on, and you can check the information. So, thank you.
Siim, Kumpas, what would you like to add about what our audience wanted to know?
Sure. Maybe two quick thoughts, and I'll try to end on a more optimistic note. So, one the problem is huge, outsized, but it doesn't mean that we should be afraid of it. On the contrary, when it comes to AI, on the one hand, the risks are obvious. At the same time, I think we are at times possibly overplaying the risks, in the sense that, yes, it is possible to create endless amounts of misleading information, one more convincing than the other with AI. But the question is, who will consume all that information? The number of consumers, people who actually consume information day in, day out, is the same. And those manipulators, they're competing with politicians, with advertisers, with influencers, with a whole range of people who are trying to get the very short span of our attention that is increasing by the year. So I think there's a bottleneck there. Even if the information space is absolutely flooded with disinformation generated by AI, most of it will not reach not a single person. So I think we should be more balanced and nuanced when we talk about the risks posed by AI. And secondly, I think we as the EU are actually much better or more capable than we sometimes think. If we don't have a crisis on our doorstep, we tend to forget about the big picture and start bickering about things that don't matter at all in the grand scheme of things. But when we have a crisis at hand, be it COVID, be it war on European soil, that puts us back on track, our focus back on track. Look back 3 years, if somebody had asked me 2 days before Russia launched its full-scale phase of the invasion, whether the EU would ever find a consensus to sanction Russian state-controlled information manipulation outlets, I would have said that that is not going to happen, not a snowball's chance in hell that member states can agree on something like that. 2 days go by, Russia fully invades Ukraine, there's a political will, and it's done. And this is just one of tens, if not hundreds, of examples how the EU has picked up its slack and when push comes to shove. So I think we shouldn't underestimate our own power, as the member of the parliament said earlier as well, that, I mean, we are the EU. We are a great power of almost 500 million people who are smart, well-educated, wealthy, so forth. So let's put that to use.
Siim Kumpas said, we are the EU, which brings me to our next EU representative, Alberto Rapakin. What would you like to add to this huge variety of topics that we opened from our audience?
Yes, indeed, it's difficult to distill an answer that can make everybody happy, or at least going home with a little bit more information. I would spend like 2 minutes in saying the following. First of all, again, on a positive note, I think if we look globally, Europe has invested a lot of resources in developing not only regulation but also investing in increasing societal resilience. And we have now a network of organization, including the network of the European Digital Media Observatory, but also a network of fact-checkers that are capable to detect and track the disinformation phenomenon across the EU. I think this is we are unique on this. All this information that this network is capable to detect should feed both, the regulators, should feed the policymakers, should feed the media in order to devise the best responses to the problem, because the problem is huge, and we should be a little bit more, focused and targeted in our response. I also want to, witness, a positive outcome of what we are doing. And, in our unit, we are responsible for this code of practice, code of conduct on disinformation. Under this code, there is a commitment that platforms have taken to develop what we call the rapid response system. Is a mechanism that put a communication channel that is putting in contact non-platform signatory of the code, so civil society organization, fact-checkers, to the very large online platform during electoral period. We have tested this during the European election. We are testing this during German election, Romanian election, and we French election as well. We have seen that having this type of organization communicating directly with the platform can go far. We can achieve a lot of result because platform get informed about content that is potentially affecting the electoral process, and we have seen platform responding to these flags. So something is working, something can be done. We have, again, I think, to focus on clear and very practical action that can bring, the result that we are looking for.
Yeah, thank you very much. A very optimistic views from the EU we have here today, so that sounds good. I want to give the last word to Thalia Bayle, please. What is your perspective on all these questions that we opened?
Yes, thank you. So I think a lot has been already said, but maybe just to conclude, I think what we all touched upon tonight is that we need what we call sometimes a whole of society approach to this topic, because it's multifaceted. So strong regulation, but also innovation, civil society that is well aware of all that. Media education, media literacy is also important. I agree with you. We need to start somewhere. So that is raising awareness among people is also very important on this topic. So yes, that is a topic that needs all of these pieces to come together to be addressed. And to conclude, maybe one word on AI. I also agree that it can be a solution, because innovation can also help detecting and saying what's good, what's false, or what's not, or what's correct. And why not at some point have our own social media platform as Europeans? That would be also something.
So I lied a little bit because I have the last word. I have the pleasure to inform you that the panel discussion will be followed by a reception in the House of the European Union, which is here. So have a good evening and thanks for caring. Everybody can contribute in the fight against disinformation.